We're live.
Awesome. We're on page 119 talking about the skin. We just went over the layers of the epidermis. The only one you have to know is the stratum basale, that's the bottom layer, and those cells are
Multiplying.
Multiplying, as you can see the cloud shouted out all together.
Cloud.
Crowd.
Oh.
Did I say cloud?
You did say cloud.
And then the stratum corneum at the top, those are cells that are dead. And they protect the skin, protect the body. Now, when you're looking at these cells in the lowest layer of the epidermis, the stratum basale, every once in a while you run into a cell that looks like this. It's kind of a darker, fatter cell, and it's got these long extensions. It almost looks like an amoeba or something. It's got extensions coming off the main part of the cell. This is called a melanocyte. And melanocytes make pigment. They make all these little dark splotches you see here. Those are skin color pigment. And they're made in the melanocyte, and they leak out through the membrane of the melanocyte and go into the other cells. So you can see this cell has some pigment in it that has come out. So does this one, and so does that one. It makes the cells darker colored. This pigment has a name. It's called melanin. Melanin is the name of the protein. And that's what gives you your skin color. So a person who's very fair skin, very light, has very inactive melanocytes. The melanocytes aren't very active in some people. A person who's born an albino has a mutation in the gene that makes melanin. So it's trying to make melanin, but it's not making it correctly. So it doesn't turn out this dark protein. It turns out a non-functional protein that doesn't do anything. So they don't have any skin pigment, an albino. And so a person who's very dark skinned has very active melanocytes. And it's a genetic predisposition. So some people are darker than others, and that's all because of the melanocyte activity. If sunlight shines on the skin, the melanocytes become more active. And so they put out more melanin, and the melanin protects you from sun damage. It absorbs the radiation, the ultraviolet radiation that comes from the sun, which can damage your cells. So the more skin pigment you have, the less sun damage you'll get. Yes?
From like the beginning of human or whatever, as far as it can be recorded, what actually made it the difference of races? Like skin colors and different shapes.
Well, that's one thing that makes races different is different skin color. And so people who live around the equator where the sun is really intense tend to have darker skin. And people who live up in northern or very southern latitudes, like people from Norway or some place like that, tend to have very light skins. So yeah, so this evolved. People, living in Scandinavia, they evolved not to have as much skin color.
What are those certain types of genes that once you reproduce, you can't carry over? Like if you were to burn, say a certain part of your skin, that wouldn't carry over to the next person.
Yeah, that's the entire study of genetics and how that works. And some things are genetically transmitted like skin color, and some things are not. Most of the stuff that you do in everyday experience doesn't transfer through your genes. So when you're taking biology, you'll study that in detail. This is a skin cancer. On page 121, they show some of the various types of skin cancer. That's called a squamous cell carcinoma. If you ever hear "oma" at the end of a word, that means cancer.
What about, oh my God.
And that is a basal cell carcinoma. Can you guess what that means, a basal cell carcinoma? What would that mean, basal cell? Related to something I just told you that you had to know about 5 minutes ago.
Bottom of the skin.
Remember the stratum basale?
Oh yeah.
Basal cell carcinoma. Are you with me?
Yeah. Oh.
And then this one before, this is a squamous cell carcinoma. So this is
In the
cancer of some of the flat cells that are further up.
stratified.
Interesting? Yeah, stratified squamous epithelium. And this is a melanoma. A melanoma is a cancer of the melanocyte. It's one of those melanocytes that's reproducing out of control. As it turns out, the melanocytes, the melanomas spread a lot easier than the other two types.
Oh.
So you don't want a melanoma.
Ring, 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 ring. Banana phone.
Edward? How are you doing? Yeah, the girls. Yeah, I did. For girls. Because they're girls. Yeah, that's for girls. No, I haven't talked to Brookwood. Okay, appreciate it. All right. Okay. So we're golf order and stuff. No, we don't want to see that. So you should always look at your skin for cancers, and you should know what they look like because you want to get on those as early as possible and make sure they're not going to do you too much harm.
It's like discolored into the patients.
Yeah, if it's discolored, if it's not perfectly circular, if it changes shape quickly, if it bleeds or is painful, all of those are bad signs. This shows the fingernails. Now, the fingernails are made of a substance called keratin. It's a protein that's also found in skin cells. It's a waterproof protein. It's tough. And it gives you your nails. And so the base of the nail, this area here, it's kind of light colored. You can look at your own nails and see this. You don't have to just look at the picture up here. But that white colored part at the base, that's the lanula. The entire nail sits on a nail bed that lies below it here. And this part of the nail here is the nail plate. Now the nail grows from the base, from this area here. These cells are multiplying, you see, and they fill up with keratin, and then they die. And so by the time the nail has grown out to about here, all the cells are dead, and it just continues to multiply down here, and that pushes the nail further out, so your nail grows out like this.
What makes it like, like most cells are within the bleeding line?
Yeah, they're hard because it's got all that keratin in it, and the keratin is a hard protein.
Is it like cartilage?
It's not cartilage. It's the same sort of thing that
Rhinos
hooves are made out of for animals. It's just a type of protein that happens to be hard. Now your skin cells all have a good amount of keratin, and they're pretty hard, but not nearly as hard as the nail because those cells have even more. There are nerves associated with the lanula here. There are nerves that attach to it. So if you pull your nail up too far, it'll break those nerves and hurt real bad, obviously. So only at the end here, where there are no nerves connecting it, can you cut it without any pain. But nails are really important. If you ever want to see how important your nails are, just tie a couple Band-Aids, put some Band-Aids around the end of all your fingertips, and then try and go for a day like that. You'll see it's hard to do things you normally take for granted. You use your nails a lot in just everyday life, scratching and just doing anything, grabbing things. Nails are really important. This is another look at a hair follicle. Just kind of showing the hair follicle in some detail here. I already talked about that last time. The hair cells also have a lot of keratin in them. So that's when it says keratinized, that means those cells are pretty tough too. So this keratin protein is a really important one. It makes things tougher, and hair is a pretty tough substance. That's a pretty cool electron microscope picture of the surface of hair. We'll watch that next time. It's pretty good, actually. Page 124, it talks about the different types of sweat glands. Eccrine and apocrine are two types of sweat glands you need to know. The most abundant sweat glands, the eccrine glands, respond throughout life to body temperature, elevated by environmental heat or physical exercise. These glands are common on the forehead, neck, and back, where they produce profuse sweat on hot days or during intense physical activity. And as they show here, there's a sweat gland. That's where the water is produced, and it squeezes up and it empties on the surface of the skin. And like I said last time, it evaporates away and takes heat away with it. Other sweat glands, known as apocrine glands, become active at puberty. Although they are currently called apocrine, these glands secrete by the same mechanism as eccrine glands, usually when a person is emotionally upset, frightened, in pain, or during sexual arousal. They are most numerous in the axillary regions, that's under the arm, and groin. Ducts of these glands open into hair follicles. The secretions of these glands develop a scent as they are metabolized by skin bacteria. So it's your apocrine glands that produce body odor. Body odor is thought to be a way of communication by animals. And we evolved from animals in which it was very important. It's not as important anymore with us. When humans stood upright, the apes are on all fours, but when you stand upright, your nose is very far from the ground. And scents tend to hang out near the ground, you see. So animals that are on all fours, it's good for them to have a strong sense of smell because their nose is right next to the ground and they can pick up a lot of information. From way up here, our nose can't pick up much information. All those scent molecules way down there. And so we're slowly losing our sense of smell over the last 100,000 years of human evolution, and or the last million years. And so our sense of smell is just not very good. So it's this apocrine body odor glands are less important, but they still seem to function, and there's probably some communication going on that you aren't even aware of with someone that you know and can smell. You probably can recognize them a little bit by their smell, and you don't even realize it. Communicate with others, various emotions without even knowing it, just by the smell, and you aren't even aware that it's going on. There's been some experimental evidence that occurs. So that's interesting stuff. Those are the diseases, skin diseases. We spend a day on skin diseases coming up here shortly. I think it's tomorrow, actually. The last section of the reading talks about how wounds heal. And there's a reaction of your skin called inflammation. Inflammation is something that goes on if you damage the skin. So if somebody hits you in the head with something, with a stick or something like that, it's going to swell up. Actually, if you get hit anywhere on the body, it swells up. The skin has this inflammation reaction. And so what happens is there are cells in your skin that are just sitting there waiting for damage. And when there's damage, they squirt out a little chemical. It's called histamine. You ever heard of that? Mm-hmm. And histamine causes the blood vessels to dilate. and so more blood comes to the area, and water will leak out of it causes the blood vessels to become leaky, and a lot of fluid leaks out of the blood vessels. The blood cells stay in the vessel, but the fluid leaks out. And so wherever you've been damaged, there's a whole lot of fluid there. And that gets the area real hot. Your body temperature is 98.6, but where you got damaged might be 105. And that kills bacteria, you see, because all that hot water is sitting there in one place.
Does that have to do with the mast cell?
Yeah, mast cells. Those are cells that release histamine. Yeah. So you get heat, you get swelling, you get redness, you get pain. The neurons are sensitive to pressure, and all that fluid in one area squeezes the neurons, and they start sending pain signals. And what that ends up doing is you protect an injured area because it hurts, and you don't want it. Anything that touches it hurts, so you immediately withdraw it from danger, and so that makes you not want to injure the organ further. And so the pain is really important. So there's this inflammation reaction that's really important to maintaining the health of your skin. You're to read tonight through the rest of chapter 6. If you haven't read all of it already, which you probably haven't, just finish chapter 6. You should have read all of chapter 6 by tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll do the common skin disorders, and then we will work on our IDs. Okay? And so what you're going to do now is you're going to go to Miss Mullis's room, and she's going to show you that autopsy. It's only about 10 minutes. And then after that's up,